I died with the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth. My husband Ryan, the man I sacrificed everything for, stood beside my hospital bed holding another woman's hand, Olivia, his true love, his white moonlight. For 30 years, I cooked his meals, raised his child, and kept his home while he saved his heart for her. I gave up Northwestern University. I abandoned my dreams. And for what? To be someone's consolation prize. Then I woke up, 18 again, the morning of my high school graduation, the very day Ryan would approach me with rehearsed compliments and calculated charm. Armed with memories of a lifetime of neglect and emotional betrayal, I now have one chance to dismantle our toxic engagement before it begins. This time, I won't be the naive girl who falls for his act. This time, I won't sacrifice my education and dreams for a man who will never truly love me. This time, I have foresight, determination, and the strategic advantage of knowing exactly what moves they'll make. Ryan might be confused by my sudden coldness. My parents may pressure me toward the match they believe is perfect. Olivia might orchestrate emergencies and manipulate those around us, but they're all playing a game I've already seen, through to its devastating end. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming the life that should have been mine. It's about becoming the architect of my own happiness instead of a pawn in their twisted love story. Buckle up, get ready, and subscribe for a special surprise tomorrow. I died with the bitter taste of Ryan's betrayal still fresh on my lips. The monitor beeped steadily beside my hospital bed, counting down the final moments of a life wasted on a man who never truly loved me. Through clouded vision, I watched my husband of 30 years hold another woman's hand, whispering the words I had waited decades to hear. "I've always loved you, Olivia. It was always you." Then I gasped awake, my hands clutching at my chest, feeling for the tubes and wires that had been there moments ago. Instead, my fingers met the soft cotton of my old nightshirt, the one with the faded university logo I'd stopped wearing after marriage. Sunlight streamed through familiar curtains, illuminating a room I hadn't seen in 3 decades. My childhood bedroom, unchanged, untouched by time. I stumbled to the mirror, nearly collapsing at the sight that greeted me. Gone was the worn-out, gray-haired woman who had learned the truth too late. Instead, a fresh-faced 18-year-old stared back, eyes wide with disbelief. I touched my smooth skin, ran fingers through thick black hair, searching for some sign that this was just another cruel dream. The calendar on my wall read June 15th, 2025. High school graduation day, the day Ryan Sullivan first approached me with practiced charm and calculated interest. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor as memories crashed over me like violent waves. 30 years of marriage compressed into flashes of loneliness. Dinners eaten alone while Ryan worked late. A child raised essentially by a single mother. The constant gnawing suspicion that my husband was elsewhere in spirit, even when physically present. "Wait, breakfast is ready. Don't be late for your graduation ceremony." My mother's voice floated up the stairs, exactly as it had done before, a voice I hadn't heard in 15 years since her death from cancer. I forced myself to respond, my voice cracking. "Coming, Mom!" My hands trembled as I dressed in the outfit I somehow remembered choosing 3 decades ago. A modest blue dress, selected specifically because one of Ryan's friends had mentioned he liked that color on girls. How pathetic I had been, already trying to please a boy who would never truly see me. Downstairs, my family moved through familiar motions. Dad reading his newspaper, Mom fussing over breakfast, grandmother sipping her tea. My grandmother, whose health had deteriorated so rapidly after my wedding, forcing me to balance caring for her with managing a new marriage and a resentful husband who saw her as a burden. "Your Northwestern acceptance letter arrived yesterday," Dad said without looking up from his paper. "Your mother and I still think the local university would be more practical." The Northwestern letter. The opportunity I had sacrificed to marry Ryan, to support his career while mine never began. The dreams I had folded away so carefully, they eventually disappeared altogether. "I'm going to Northwestern," I stated, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. My mother paused, spatula in hand. "Wei, we've discussed this. It's so far away, and the Sullivan boy has shown interest in you. His family has connections that could set you both up well." Ryan Sullivan, the golden boy, the perfect catch, who would prove to be fool's gold. I felt my face flush with anger I couldn't explain to them. "Yeah, for 30 years, I was the convenient wife who managed Ryan's home and raised his child while he remained devoted to you. You had the best of both worlds, Olivia. His heart without the responsibility of being his wife." Ryan looked genuinely shaken. "Wei, I don't know how to process what you're saying. It sounds impossible, but you know things you couldn't possibly know." "I know that you're not a bad person, Ryan," I said, surprising myself with the realization that I meant it. "You were caught between your promise to Olivia and the expectations of your family, but your solution was cruel. Living as someone's second choice for 30 years is a particular kind of hell." Olivia's composure finally cracked. "I've loved Ryan since we were children," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "My parents' financial troubles, they've changed everything. Ryan is all I have left." "So you manipulated him into pursuing me for my family's money while ensuring he remained emotionally yours," I stated. "I was desperate," she whispered. "I still am." Ryan looked between us, conflict evident in his expression. I don't know what to say. I've always felt torn between what I want and what's expected of me. "Then let me make it simple for you both," I said, rising from my seat. "I refuse to be part of this toxic dynamic again. I won't be your convenient wife, Ryan, or your financial solution, Olivia. Whatever happens between you two is your business, but I won't sacrifice my life to maintain your comfortable arrangement." As I turned to leave, Ryan reached for my hand. "Wei, wait, I need to understand. If what you're saying is true, if you really lived through a lifetime with me, there must have been something good between us, some reason you stayed." His question caught me off guard. In all my anger and determination, I had rarely considered the moments of genuine connection we had shared. There were good times, I admitted, but they were never enough to outweigh the fundamental truth of our marriage. I was never your first choice, Ryan. I deserved better than that, and in this life, I intend to find it. I walked away from the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in either lifetime. The truth, as impossible as it sounded, was finally in the open. Whatever Ryan and Olivia chose to do with that truth was their concern, not mine. The next morning I received a text from my father. It was brief and to the point. "Call me when you have time." My finger hovered over the delete button, but something made me hesitate. Despite everything, they were still my family. "I've been reviewing those business proposals you mentioned," my father said when I called. His voice was carefully neutral. "The renewable energy partnerships in Southeast Asia. There might be something there." I gripped the phone tighter. "What about the Sullivan partnership?" "That's over," he said flatly, "but it's not your concern anymore. I just wanted you to know that some of your ideas have merit. I've arranged meetings next week to explore them further." It wasn't an apology, but from my father, it was as close as I was likely to get. The acknowledgement of my business acumen meant more than I had expected. "Thank you," I said simply. "Your mother misses you," he added after a brief silence. "We both do." The admission surprised me. In my previous life, tensions between us had lingered for years after my marriage to Ryan, my parents never quite forgiving me for not being the perfect corporate wife they had envisioned. "I miss you too," I admitted. "But I need to build my own life, Dad, one that isn't defined by who I marry or what business connections I bring." "I'm beginning to understand that," he said slowly. "Your grandmother always said you had a mind for business. I should have listened to her sooner." After that conversation, things shifted subtly with my family. My mother started calling regularly, asking about my classes rather than my love life. My father occasionally emailed articles about business trends, seeking my opinion. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, a new dynamic built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Financially, things remained tight. I picked up additional hours at the bookstore and took on tutoring jobs to make ends meet. Each small victory of self-sufficiency felt enormous after a lifetime of dependence. 3 weeks after our confrontation, Ryan appeared at the bookstore just before closing. "Can we talk?" he asked, his usual confidence notably absent. We walked to a nearby bench on the quad, the evening air crisp with approaching winter. "Olivia and I broke up," he said without preamble. I raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware you were officially together." "We weren't. Not in the way people would recognize," he admitted. "But we've been emotionally entangled since childhood. After our conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, about 30 years of being someone's second choice." I waited, unsure where he was going with this. "I realized I've never made my own choices," he continued. "I've been living according to my family's expectations and bound by promises made when I was too young to understand their implications. Olivia has been doing the same. We've been trapped in a dynamic that was destroying both of us and would have destroyed you, too." "So, what happens now?" I asked. "Olivia is transferring to a school on the East Coast. Her aunt has agreed to help with expenses. I'm staying here, but I want you to know I won't be bothering you anymore." He offered a small, sad smile. "It's clear we're not meant to be together in this timeline." His choice of words, this timeline, acknowledged the truth of my rebirth without requiring him to fully understand it. It was more consideration than I had ever received from him in my previous life. "Thank you," I said simply. As Ryan walked away, I felt the last threads of my past life finally unraveling. The patterns that had defined my existence for 30 years were breaking, creating space for something new. I established firm boundaries with my family, making it clear that while I valued our relationship, my life choices were my own. I developed a detailed plan for financial independence, combining part-time work with strategic investments based on market knowledge from my previous life. Most importantly, I began to envision a future defined by my own desires rather than reactions to Ryan and Olivia. I joined the business club, applying insights from decades of observing my father's successes and failures. I formed friendships based on genuine connection rather than convenience or obligation. When my roommate asked if I was seeing anyone, I laughed and shook my head. "I'm focused on building a life I love," I told her. "If the right relationship comes along, great, but I won't settle for being anyone's second choice again." "Again?" she questioned, confused by my phrasing. I just smiled. "Let's just say I know exactly what I want this time around." For the first time since my rebirth, I felt truly free, not just from Ryan and Olivia, but from the patterns of self-sacrifice and compromise that had defined my previous existence. The future stretched before me, unmarked by past mistakes, rich with possibilities I had never allowed myself to imagine. I was no longer running from a predetermined fate. I was walking confidently toward a life of my own design. 5 years passed with the speed that only comes with a life lived purposefully. I graduated from Northwestern with honors, my business degree opening doors that had remained firmly closed in my previous life. Instead of planning a wedding or compromising my ambitions, I launched a boutique consulting firm specializing in renewable energy partnerships across Southeast Asia, exactly the sector I had advised my father to invest in years earlier. My family attended my graduation. Our relationship transformed from the controlling dynamic of my youth into something approaching mutual respect. My father, whose business had flourished following my early advice, now occasionally consulted me on international ventures. My mother had finally accepted that my path would not include Ryan Sullivan or any man who expected me to diminish myself for his comfort. My grandmother, still healthy and sharp at 83, squeezed my hand at the graduation dinner. "You always were meant for more than being someone's wife," she said with a knowing smile. "I'm glad you realized it sooner than most." If only she knew how much sooner it had actually been. I was reviewing contracts in my small but elegant office when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "A Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan are here to see you." My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't seen Ryan since our final conversation on campus nearly 5 years ago. Occasional updates from mutual acquaintances had informed me that he had indeed married Olivia shortly after graduation, fulfilling the childhood promise that had defined both their lives. "Send them in," I said, smoothing my jacket and straightening my shoulders. They entered hesitantly, Ryan looking successful but tired in his tailored suit. Olivia thin and elegant as always, though her eyes lacked the manipulative sparkle I remembered. They seemed smaller somehow, less imposing than the figures who had dominated my previous life. "Wei," Ryan nodded formally. "Thank you for seeing us without an appointment." "Of course," I replied, gesturing to the chairs across from my desk. "What brings you here?" Ryan glanced at Olivia, who spoke with none of her former confidence. "We're working with a renewable energy startup. Your firm was recommended as the leading consultancy for Asian markets." The irony wasn't lost on me. In this new timeline, they were coming to me for business advice, a complete reversal of our previous dynamic. "I didn't realize you were in the energy sector," I said, keeping my tone professionally neutral. "After my family's business struggled, we had to pivot," Ryan explained. "Your father's success in renewables inspired us to explore the field." I nodded, allowing myself a moment of satisfaction. My father had followed my advice, succeeding where the Sullivans had faltered. Now they were playing catch-up in a market I understood intimately. "I'll have my team review your proposal," I said, "though I should mention that we're quite selective about our clients." Ryan's eyes met mine, recognition flickering there. He understood the subtle shift in power, the complete transformation of our positions. "We understand," Olivia said quietly. "We appreciate any consideration." As they turned to leave, Ryan paused at the door. "You were right, Wei, about everything." I didn't need him to elaborate. The strain visible between them, the weariness in his expression, told me everything I needed to know about their marriage. They had followed the path that had been set for them since childhood, only to discover it wasn't leading to happiness. Later that evening, I met with David Chen for dinner. We'd been dating for 6 months, having met at an international business conference where we were both speakers. He was brilliant, kind, and most importantly, fully present in our relationship. "You seem thoughtful tonight," he observed as we shared dessert. "Did something happen at work?" I considered how to explain the complexity of seeing Ryan and Olivia, of witnessing the culmination of choices made and unmade across 2 lifetimes. "I ran into someone from my past today," I said simply. "It made me realize how different my life could have been if I had made different choices." David reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Regrets?" I smiled, thinking of the gray-haired woman I had been, dying with the bitter knowledge of a life wasted on a man who had never truly loved her. Number gratitude. The next morning, I visited my grandmother for our weekly tea ritual. As I poured the fragrant jasmine brew into delicate cups, she studied me with those knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. "You know, Wei," she said thoughtfully, "sometimes I look at you and it's as if you've lived a lifetime already." I smiled, the familiar comment warming me as it always did. "In some ways, I have, grandmother." "Well, whatever experiences shaped you, they created a woman of remarkable strength and wisdom," she said, raising her cup in a small toast. "This life suits you better than the one that was planned for you." "It does," I agreed, thinking of my thriving business, my supportive family, my relationship with a man who saw me as an equal partner rather than a convenient wife. As I left my grandmother's house, My phone buzzed with a message from David about dinner plans. The simple domesticity of it made me smile. This relationship wasn't built on family expectations or business connections, but on genuine compatibility and mutual respect. The sun was setting as I walked to my car, casting long shadows across the street. In the gathering dusk, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a shop window, strong and confident, moving purposefully through a life of my own design. This time around, I wasn't a supporting character in someone else's love story. I was the architect of my own happiness, the author of my own future. This time, I had lived the life I deserved. How could I tell them that the man they thought was ideal would spend 30 years giving the best parts of himself to another woman while leaving me with duty and obligation? The rest of breakfast passed in a blur of small talk as my mind raced through implications. Somehow, impossibly, I had been given a second chance. A reset button on a life that had ended in pain and regret. As I walked to the graduation ceremony, each step felt surreal. Students passed by, laughing and taking photos, oblivious to the woman in their midst who had already lived an entire lifetime of disappointment. My hands clutched the acceptance letter I had brought with me like a talisman. This time would be different. This time, I had foreknowledge of every manipulation, every lie, every moment of neglect that awaited me if I followed the same path. And there he was, Ryan Sullivan, waiting near the entrance just as he had done before, his perfectly styled hair and confident smile designed to disarm. Behind him, partially hidden by a tree, stood a pale, thin girl watching him with possessive eyes, Olivia Carter. His true love, his obsession, the woman whose shadow had darkened my entire married life. My heart hammered against my ribs as Ryan spotted me and began walking over, rehearsing the same smile that had once made my young heart flutter. But now I saw through it, recognized the performance for what it was. This time I wouldn't be a supporting character in their love story. This time I would write my own. "Way, congratulations on graduating with honors," Ryan said, flashing that practiced smile that once melted my teenage heart. "You looked beautiful up there on stage." The same words, exactly the same as before. In my past life, I had blushed, stammered a thank you, and felt special that the most sought-after boy in school had noticed me. I remembered how my pulse had raced when he asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. This time, I looked straight into his eyes, searching for the coldness I'd come to know over 30 years of marriage. It wasn't there yet. Instead, I saw calculation, a strategic interest that I had been too naive to recognize before. "Thank you, Ryan," I replied coolly, "but I'm afraid I'll be quite busy preparing for Northwestern." His expression flickered with surprise. This wasn't how our conversation had gone before. "Northwestern? That's impressive. Still, I'm sure you could spare an hour for coffee. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while now." From the corner of my eye, I could see Olivia watching us, her thin frame partially hidden behind a group of celebrating students. Even from this distance, I could see the possessive gleam in her eyes. In my past life, I hadn't noticed her at all that day. Now, knowing what I knew, her presence was impossible to miss. "I'm not interested, Ryan," I said firmly. "Enjoy the rest of graduation." I walked away, feeling his stunned gaze on my back. In my previous life, that coffee date had led to a whirlwind romance, a proposal my senior year of high school, and a marriage that slowly drained the life from me. One simple refusal had just changed the course of my future. "Wait, what are you doing?" my mother hissed when I rejoined my family. "Ryan Sullivan was talking to you and you just walked away? Do you know who his family is?" "I know exactly who they are, Mom," I said, trying to keep irritation from my voice. My mother couldn't possibly understand my resistance. In her eyes, and in the eyes of our community, Ryan Sullivan was the perfect catch. Handsome, from a good family, with prospects for a successful future. "You're being ridiculous," she continued. "He's shown interest in you. Most girls would be thrilled." Most girls hadn't lived through 30 years of emotional neglect at his hands. The next week passed in a blur of graduation parties and family gatherings. At each one, Ryan appeared, somehow always managing to be wherever I was. His persistence was new. In my previous life, I had been the eager one, always finding excuses to be near him. This reversal unsettled me. "You're avoiding me," he said, cornering me at my cousin's graduation party. "Have I done something to offend you?" "Not yet," I replied before I could stop myself. His eyebrows drew together. "What does that mean?" I forced a smile. "Nothing. I'm just focused on my future right now." "Northwestern," he nodded. "You know, I was considering transferring to a school in that area myself." Cold dread settled in my stomach. This was new. In our previous life, Ryan had attended the state university, and I'd given up Northwestern to stay close to him. The idea that he might follow me was both alarming and confusing. Later that night, I overheard my parents talking in hushed voices. "The Sullivan boy seems quite taken with her," my father said. His father mentioned it at the office today, said Ryan's never shown this much interest in a girl before. "She's being stubborn," my mother replied. "I don't understand why she's set on going so far away when she has prospects here. The Sullivans are a good family. They could give her stability." The irony made me want to laugh bitterly. Stability was the last thing Ryan had given me. But how could I explain that to them? The next morning, I found my grandmother alone in the kitchen, brewing her special tea. She had always been the wisest person I knew, though I hadn't appreciated it enough in my past life. "Something has changed in you," she said, studying me with keen eyes. "Since graduation, you carry yourself differently." I hesitated. Of all people, my grandmother might be the one person who could accept the impossible truth, but not yet. "I'm just focused on my future," I said, echoing what I'd told Ryan. "The Sullivan boy's father called ours last night," she said, surprising me. "Quite interested in you joining their family someday. Your parents are pleased." My stomach clenched. In this timeline, Ryan's interest had accelerated, bringing family politics into play earlier than before. I needed to be more decisive in breaking away. "I'm going to Northwestern, grandmother. I won't give up my education for anyone." She nodded slowly, a smile playing at her lips. "Good. A woman should never set herself on fire to keep a man warm." If only I had heard those words in my previous life. If only I had understood them. As summer progressed, Ryan's pursuit intensified. Flowers delivered to our home, chance encounters that weren't chance at all, my parents' increasing pressure to give him a chance. But behind it all, I could sense Olivia's presence, growing more desperate as Ryan's attention remained fixed on me. I had made the first deviation from my past path. Now I needed to ensure it stuck. The Northwestern campus sprawled before me like a dream I'd never allowed myself to have. In my past life, I had visited only once. On a tour, I cut short when Ryan called, needing me for some manufactured emergency. Now, wheeling my luggage toward my assigned dormitory, I felt a lightness I couldn't remember experiencing before. "Need help with that?" a friendly voice called. My roommate, Aisha, according to the housing assignment. Her smile was genuine as she helped me with my bags. "I've claimed the left side of the room. Hope that's okay," she said as we entered our small but comfortable dorm room. "Engineering major. You?" "Business with a minor in finance," I replied confidently. In my past life, I had never even declared a major before dropping out to marry Ryan. This time, I was pursuing the career I'd always wanted but never chased. The first week of classes was exhilarating. Each lecture, each assignment, each new concept felt like reclaiming pieces of myself that had been sacrificed before. I threw myself into my studies with the fervor of someone who knew exactly how precious this opportunity was. "You study like someone's going to take your books away," Aisha commented one night, watching me highlight textbook passages well past midnight. If only she knew how accurate that observation was. 3 weeks into the semester, I was leaving the campus library when a familiar figure appeared in my path. My blood ran cold. Surprise. Ryan said, his smile confident as ever. "Thought I'd come see this prestigious institution that stole you away." "Ryan," I managed, clutching my books tighter. "What are you doing here?" "Visiting," he said, then added casually, "for now. I've actually applied for a transfer for spring semester. Realized the state university isn't challenging enough." This was entirely new. In our previous timeline, Ryan had never shown any interest in academic challenges. His focus had been on maintaining his social status and his family connections. The idea that he would transfer schools to pursue me was both flattering and terrifying. "You're transferring because of me," I stated flatly, not a question. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Is that so terrible? I can't stop thinking about you, Wei. You're different from other girls." The irony wasn't lost on me. In this timeline, my rejection had made me interesting to him. In our previous life, my devotion had made me convenient but utterly forgettable. "You barely know me, Ryan," I replied, stepping around him, "and I have class in 10 minutes. That night, Aisha returned to our dorm with unexpected news. "Met the most interesting girl in my sociology class today," she said, dropping onto her bed. "Transfer student named Olivia. Crazy thin, kind of intense, but smart as hell." My head snapped up from my textbook. "Olivia Carter?" Aisha looked surprised. "Yeah, actually. You know her?" My mind raced. In my previous life, Olivia had attended an exclusive private college on the East Coast, her education funded by her wealthy parents. If she was here at Northwestern as a transfer student, something significant had changed. "We went to high school together," I said carefully. "What's she doing here?" Aisha shrugged. "Not sure. She mentioned something about family financial troubles. I think she's on scholarship now. Seemed kind of bitter about it." Financial troubles. That explained the change. In my previous life, Olivia's family wealth had been a constant, allowing her to maintain her hold on Ryan from a distance. If circumstances had forced her to attend school on scholarship, her entire strategy would have changed. The next day, I spotted them together in the campus coffee shop, Ryan and Olivia sitting close, her hand resting on his arm as she spoke with animated intensity. The scene was so familiar it made my chest ache. How many times in my marriage had I watched them interact with this same intimacy, always dismissed as just friends when I dared to question it? Ryan glanced up and caught my eye. The smile he gave me was different from the one he'd been directing at Olivia, more controlled, more deliberate. He waved me over. "Wei, join us," he called. "I was just telling Olivia how we know each other from home." I approached slowly, studying Olivia with new eyes. In my past life, I had always seen her as Ryan's sophisticated friend, beautiful, refined, everything I wasn't. Now I could see the calculation behind her frail appearance, the way she subtly positioned herself as needing protection. "Olivia," I nodded. "I heard you transferred here. That must have been difficult." Something flashed in her eyes. Surprise that I knew, perhaps, or irritation at being reminded of her changed circumstances. "Life is full of unexpected challenges," she replied with a tight smile. "Ryan's been kind enough to help me adjust." Of course he had. Some dynamics never changed, no matter the timeline. "How do you two know each other?" I asked, though I knew the answer all too well. "Our mothers are old friends," Ryan explained, the same explanation he'd given me 30 years ago. We practically grew up together. What he didn't say, what he'd never said until my deathbed, was that he'd been in love with her since childhood, bound by a promise to always take care of her. As I stood there watching them, seeing the familiar patterns forming again, I realized that simply rejecting Ryan's advances wouldn't be enough. The three of us were trapped in a gravitational pull that transcended my rebirth. To truly escape, I would need to understand why the pattern existed in the first place. Over the next few weeks, Ryan's pursuit intensified in ways that left me increasingly unsettled. In my past life, he had been attentive during our courtship, but never passionate, never desperate. This Ryan was different, sending daily texts, appearing outside my lecture halls, finding reasons to be wherever I plan to be. He's totally into you, Aisha insisted, after Ryan left yet another elaborate coffee delivery at our dorm. I don't get why you keep shutting him down. I couldn't explain that his behavior contradicted 30 years of memories, that the intensity of his pursuit made me suspicious rather than flattered. The more he chased me, the more convinced I became that something else was driving him, that something revealed itself on a rainy Tuesday when I entered the library's quiet study section. Ryan and Olivia sat huddled in a corner, arguing in hushed tones. I ducked behind a bookshelf close enough to hear their conversation. "My father's company is falling apart," Olivia whispered fiercely. "We could lose everything, Ryan, everything. You promised you'd always be there for me." "And I will be," Ryan replied, his voice carrying that special softness he reserved only for her. "But this is different from what we planned. If I can convince Wei to give me a chance, our families could form a partnership. Her father's connections in Asia, combined with my father's domestic infrastructure, could save both our families." My blood turned to ice. So that was it. Not genuine interest, but strategy. Ryan's family needed my father's international business connections, and Olivia's family needed Ryan's financial support. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "What about us?" Olivia's voice cracked. "What about everything we've talked about since we were kids?" Ryan's response was too quiet for me to hear, but I'd heard enough. I backed away, mind racing. This wasn't just about escaping a loveless marriage anymore. I was a pawn in a larger game involving both our families. I was still processing this revelation when I literally collided with Ryan outside my economics class the next day. "Wei, perfect timing," he said, steadying me with hands that lingered too long on my shoulders. "There's a business forum downtown this weekend. Your father mentioned you might be interested." "My father?" I asked sharply. "You've been talking to my father?" Ryan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Our dads are discussing some potential ventures together." "Your name came up." Of course it had. In this timeline, with Olivia's family fortunes reversed, Ryan needed me more than ever. Not for love, not for companionship, but for what my family could provide. "I'm busy this weekend," I said flatly, trying to move past him. Wait, he caught my arm. "What's going on? I feel like you're avoiding me for reasons I don't understand." Something in me snapped. "You want to know why I avoid you, Ryan?" "Because I know about you and Olivia." His face paled. "What about me and Olivia?" "The promises you made to each other as children, the way you look at her when you think no one is watching, the real reason you suddenly want to transfer to Northwestern." Words tumbled out before I could stop them. Knowledge I shouldn't possess in this timeline. Details of their relationship that would only be revealed to me decades later on my deathbed. Ryan's expression shifted from shock to confusion to an odd, intense curiosity. "How could you possibly know any of that? We've barely spoken before graduation." I realized my mistake too late. My foreknowledge had slipped out, revealing impossibilities I couldn't explain. "I've seen how you are together," I backpedaled weakly. "It's obvious to anyone paying attention." But Ryan wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, studying me with new interest. "No, it's more than that. The things you just said. Specific details about promises made years ago. It's like you've been inside my head or something." The look on his face wasn't anger as I might have expected, but fascination. "You're different," he said slowly. "I noticed it at graduation. Something changed about you overnight. That's what drew me to you in the first place." This admission shocked me. In our previous life, Ryan had approached me because I was convenient, suitable, the right kind of girl from the right kind of family. Now he was suggesting he sensed something unusual about me, something that attracted him beyond the practical benefits of an alliance with my family. "I don't know what you're talking about," I insisted, pulling away. "I think you do," he said quietly, And I think that's why you're avoiding me. Not because you're not interested, but because you know something you shouldn't." His perception was unexpected and alarming. This version of Ryan was more observant, more intuitive than the man I had married. Or perhaps he had always been this way, and I had been too blinded by infatuation to notice. "I have to go," I said, pushing past him. "Wei," he called after me. "Whatever it is you think you know about me and Olivia, it's not the whole story. Give me a chance to explain." I kept walking, but his words followed me. In 30 years of marriage, Ryan had never once offered to explain his relationship with Olivia. He had dismissed my concerns, gaslighted my suspicions, made me feel irrational for questioning their bond. This timeline was becoming more unpredictable by the day. I needed to understand what had changed and why before I lost control of my carefully planned second chance. The call came during my financial analysis midterm. My phone vibrated persistently in my pocket until I finally stepped outside to answer it. "Wei, you need to come home." My mother's voice was tight with worry. "Your grandmother collapsed this morning." My heart dropped. In my previous life, my grandmother had remained relatively healthy until after my wedding, when the stress of family conflict had triggered her decline. This was happening years earlier than before. "I'll be on the next train," I promised. 5 hours later, I sat beside my grandmother's hospital bed, holding her frail hand. The doctors spoke of exhaustion, of age catching up, of tests they still needed to run. But I knew better. My grandmother had always been sensitive to family tensions, and those tensions were mounting faster in this timeline than they had in my previous life. "Your father is very upset," my mother whispered when we stepped into the hallway. "The partnership with the Sullivans fell through yesterday. Mr. Sullivan said his son is reconsidering his options." The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Ryan's family was applying pressure through business channels, punishing my father for my rejection of their son. "That has nothing to do with me," I insisted, though I knew it had everything to do with me. "Wei, be reasonable," my mother pleaded. "The Sullivans are an influential family. Your father has invested heavily in this partnership, and Ryan clearly cares for you." I bit back the bitter laugh that threatened to escape. Ryan cared for what I represented: access to my father's business connections, a respectable wife who wouldn't interfere with his true feelings for Olivia. "I won't be manipulated through business tactics," I said firmly. My mother's expression hardened. "Then think of your grandmother. Think of your family. Is your stubbornness worth our suffering?" The guilt tactics were familiar. In my past life, they had worked perfectly. I had given in, prioritizing family harmony over my own happiness, telling myself it was the right thing to do. Not this time. I spent the night at the hospital thinking through my options. By morning, I had a plan. I called my academic advisor, arranged to complete my midterms remotely, and prepared to stay home until my grandmother stabilized. I would use this time to address the business situation directly. My father was in his home office when I knocked on the door. "Come in, Wei," he said, not looking up from his computer. The lines on his face seemed deeper than I remembered, the burden of business failures weighing heavily on him. "I want to understand what happened with the Sullivan partnership," I said without preamble. He sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "It's complicated." "Is it? Or did they pull out because I refused to date their son?" My father's surprise confirmed my suspicion. "How did you know?" "Ryan made his intentions clear at school," I said carefully. "But I'm not interested in being used as a business negotiation tactic." "It's not that simple," my father argued. "These are old family connections. The Sullivans have been good to us. Ryan is a good match for you." I took a deep breath. "Dad, I know things are difficult right now, but there are other ways to salvage the business situation. Let me help." His laugh was short and dismissive. "What could you possibly know about business, Wei? You're only in your first semester of college." In my previous life, I would have accepted this dismissal. but I had decades of business knowledge from watching my father's company rise and fall, from managing our family finances while Ryan's ventures floundered. I knew exactly what mistakes my father would make in the coming years. The Sullivan Partnership focuses too heavily on domestic infrastructure, I said calmly. The real growth will be in renewable energy partnerships across Southeast Asia. I've done the research. Let me show you. For the next hour, I laid out a business strategy that wouldn't materialize in the market for another 5 years. My father's initial skepticism gave way to cautious interest as I explained potential pitfalls and opportunities with the confidence of someone who had seen it all unfold before. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked finally. "I've been paying attention," I said simply. "Will you at least consider an alternative to the Sullivan Partnership?" He nodded slowly. "I'll look into it." That evening, as I sat with my recovering grandmother, my phone lit up with a message from Ryan. "Your father just called mine. What did you say to him?" I ignored it, but the message confirmed that my strategy was working. If my father pursued independent business ventures, the Sullivan family would lose their leverage. I could return to Northwestern without the weight of family pressure pushing me toward Ryan. "You seem different," my grandmother said suddenly, her eyes sharp despite her weakened state. "Older somehow." I squeezed her hand gently. "Just growing up, grandmother." She studied me with knowing eyes. "Number? It's more than that. You speak with the wisdom of someone who has already lived through pain." If only she knew how accurate her observation was. "Rest now," I whispered. "I'm working on making things better for all of us." As she drifted to sleep, my phone buzzed again with another message from Ryan. "We need to talk. I'm coming to see you tomorrow." The confrontation I had been avoiding was finally at hand. I needed to be ready. Ryan arrived at our house precisely at noon, dressed in the carefully casual way that had once made my young heart flutter. In my previous life, I had spent hours analyzing his every gesture and expression, searching for signs of affection that were never truly there. Now I saw him clearly, the calculated charm, the practiced sincerity. "Wei," he greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that I tolerated but didn't return. "How's your grandmother?" "Recovering," I said flatly. "What are you doing here, Ryan?" He sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Our fathers are at an impasse. I thought maybe we could talk, find a way to smooth things over." "So this is a business visit," I stated. "No, it's not like that," he insisted, though we both knew it was exactly like that. "I genuinely care about you, Wei. I always have." The lie slid so easily from his lips. In my past life, I had believed it completely. "Let's go for a walk," I suggested, unwilling to have this conversation where my family might overhear. As we strolled through the neighborhood, Ryan launched into an elaborate explanation of how our family's businesses could complement each other, how a personal relationship between us would strengthen those ties, how much sense it all made. The same arguments that had convinced me before now sounded hollow and manipulative. "What about Olivia?" I asked abruptly. His steps faltered. "What about her?" "Don't play dumb, Ryan. I know about your promise to her. I know she's the one you really care about." His expression shifted from surprise to something more calculating. "Olivia and I have a complicated history. She's like family to me, but that doesn't mean I don't have genuine feelings for you." "Genuine feelings," I repeated. "Is that what you call it when you spend our entire marriage emotionally devoted to another woman?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Ryan stopped walking, staring at me with a mixture of confusion and alarm. "Our marriage? Wait, what are you talking about?" I closed my eyes briefly, silently cursing my slip. "I meant a hypothetical marriage. If we were to get married, I know where your true feelings would lie." Ryan studied me with an intensity that was unsettling. "You've been saying strange things since graduation. Things you couldn't possibly know. It's like you're seeing a future that hasn't happened yet." His perception was frighteningly accurate. I needed to regain control of the conversation. "I'm seeing the truth that's right in front of me," I countered. "You and Olivia have been inseparable since childhood. She needs you now more than ever with her family's financial troubles. The only reason you're pursuing me is because my family can help yours financially." "That's not fair," he protested, though his eyes betrayed him. "Isn't it? Tell me honestly, Ryan, if Olivia's family hadn't lost their fortune, would you still be here right now?" His silence was answer enough. When we returned to my house, my mother was waiting with barely contained excitement. "Your father and Mr. Sullivan have been talking all morning. They've resolved their differences. We're having a dinner tonight to celebrate both families together." My stomach dropped. This was happening too quickly, spiraling toward the exact outcome I was trying to avoid. "I won't be there," I said firmly. My mother's smile froze. "What do you mean?" "Of course you'll be there. This dinner is important for our family." "I have to return to school," I lied. "I have midterms to make up." "Your professors will understand," she insisted. "Family comes first." The irony of her words wasn't lost on me. In my previous life, family had always come first, my needs and desires sacrificed on the altar of family harmony and business connections. "I said no," I repeated, my voice steady. Ryan touched my arm gently. "Wei, please, just one dinner, for your parents' sake." I knew what this dinner represented. In my past life, it had been at a similar family gathering that Ryan had formally asked for my hand, with both sets of parents looking on approvingly. It had felt inevitable then, a path I had no choice but to follow. Against my better judgment, I agreed to attend. I needed to see how the dynamics had changed in this new timeline, to understand what I was truly up against. The dinner was held at an upscale restaurant downtown, the same one where Ryan had proposed in my previous life. Both families arrived dressed impeccably, the picture of upper-middle-class success and propriety. Then Olivia walked in. She hadn't been present at this dinner in my past life. Her appearance now, uninvited and unexpected, sent a ripple of tension through the gathering. "I hope you don't mind," she said with a fragile smile directed at both sets of parents. "Ryan mentioned this important dinner, and I wanted to offer my congratulations." My mother's confused expression and Mr. Sullivan's tight-lipped displeasure confirmed that her presence was unwelcome, but Ryan immediately stood, pulling out a chair for her next to his. Halfway through the dinner, Olivia suddenly clutched at her chest, her face contorting in apparent pain. "I feel faint," she whispered dramatically. Ryan was at her side instantly, his concern palpable and genuine in a way it had never been for me, even after 30 years of marriage. "I'll take her to the hospital," he announced, already helping her to her feet. As they moved toward the exit, I caught fragments of their whispered exchange, the exact words I had overheard on my deathbed decades into the future. "You'll always be first for me, Olivia. Nothing will change that. Promise me, Ryan, promise you'll never leave me alone. I promise. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you." In that moment, watching history repeat itself despite all my efforts to change it, I made my decision. I would not be a supporting character in their love story again. Whatever ties bound our families, whatever pressure came my way, I would not sacrifice my life a second time. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. All eyes turned to me as I addressed both families with calm determination. I won't be marrying Ryan Sullivan. Not now. Not ever. The silence that followed my declaration was absolute. My mother's face drained of color, my father's jaw clenched tight, and Mr. Sullivan's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Wei, this is neither the time nor place," my father said finally, his voice low with controlled anger. "Actually, it's exactly the time and place," I countered, suddenly exhausted by the charade, "before any more business deals are made based on a marriage that will never happen." Mrs. Sullivan cleared her throat delicately. "Perhaps the young people need time to work through their feelings." There's nothing to work through, I stated firmly. Ryan is in love with Olivia. He always has been. I refuse to be a convenient business arrangement in a marriage where I'll always be second best. The shocked expressions around the table confirmed that I had spoken aloud what everyone knew, but no one acknowledged. In my previous life, I had been too naive to see it. Now, with the wisdom of hindsight, the truth was painfully obvious. I left the restaurant alone, ignoring my parents' calls to come back. The cool night air felt cleansing against my flushed skin. For the first time since my rebirth, I felt truly free. That freedom was short-lived. The next morning, my father entered my bedroom without knocking. "You've embarrassed this family," he said without preamble. "The Sullivans have withdrawn completely from our business venture. Your behavior last night has cost us dearly." "I won't apologize for refusing to be traded like a business asset," I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. His expression hardened. "If you insist on this path, you do it without our support. No more tuition payments, no more living expenses. You wanted independence, now you have it." The threat was meant to break me, to force me back into compliance. In my past life, it would have worked. Financial security had been one of the primary reasons I had agreed to marry Ryan. "Fine," I said calmly. "I'll support myself." My father hadn't expected this response. "Don't be ridiculous, Wei. You're barely through your first semester of college. How will you support yourself?" "I'll figure it out," I told him. "I'm more capable than you think." Later that day, as I packed my belongings for the return to Northwestern, my mother made one last attempt. "Ryan called this morning," she said, hovering in my doorway. "He seemed genuinely upset. He says you've misunderstood his relationship with Olivia." "Did he? And where was he calling from? Olivia's hospital room?" My mother's hesitation confirmed my suspicion. "He's concerned about a friend. That doesn't mean he doesn't care for you." "Mom, I've seen how this story ends," I said, zipping my suitcase closed. "I won't live through it again." Her brow furrowed at my strange choice of words. "Again? Wei, sometimes I don't understand you anymore. Since graduation, you've been like a different person." If only she knew how accurate that observation was. Back at Northwestern, I faced the daunting reality of my new financial situation. My scholarship covered tuition, but not living expenses. I found a part-time job at the campus bookstore, reduced my meal plan to the minimum, and calculated exactly how much I needed to survive the semester. "Your parents cut you off?" Aisha asked incredulously when I explained my sudden frugality. "All because you wouldn't date some guy from home?" "It's complicated," I said, unable to explain the full truth. A week after my return, Ryan appeared outside my economics class, his expression unusually somber. "You look terrible," I observed, noting the dark circles under his eyes. "I haven't been sleeping well," he admitted, "not since the dinner." "Wei, you have to believe me. What you said about Olivia and me, it's not that simple." "Isn't it? How is she, by the way? Recovered from her convenient medical emergency?" His eyes flashed with genuine hurt. "That's not fair. Olivia has had health issues since childhood. It's why I've always felt responsible for her." "Responsible enough to string me along while keeping her as your emotional priority? No, thank you." I tried to move past him, but he caught my arm. "What happened to you, Wei?" "It's like you woke up one day with a completely different personality, with knowledge about me and Olivia you couldn't possibly have." His perception was uncomfortably accurate. I pulled away, unsettled by his insight. "Ask yourself why you're really here, Ryan," I said quietly. "Is it because you truly want me? Or because your family needs mine for business reasons? Or is it because Olivia needs financial stability that my family could provide indirectly through our marriage?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. That weekend, I received an unexpected call from my cousin May. "Have you heard what Olivia Carter is saying about you?" she asked without preamble. "She's telling everyone you had some kind of mental breakdown, that you've been having delusions about her and Ryan." I gripped my phone tighter. What exactly is she saying? That you've created this elaborate fantasy about her and Ryan having some secret relationship, that you've been acting strangely since graduation, almost like a different person. People are worried about you, Wei. The strategic brilliance of Olivia's approach wasn't lost on me. By painting me as mentally unstable, she undermined my credibility while positioning herself as the concerned friend. It was manipulation at its finest. "Are you okay?" May asked when I didn't immediately respond. "You know you can talk to me if something's wrong." For a brief moment, I considered telling May the truth about my rebirth, about the 30 years of marriage I had endured, about Ryan and Olivia's betrayal. But how could anyone possibly believe such a story? "I'm fine," I assured her. "Olivia has her reasons for spreading rumors." As I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the window. Was I truly changing anything, or just postponing the inevitable? What if, despite all my efforts, I was still trapped in the same toxic pattern with Ryan and Olivia? The thought was more terrifying than any financial hardship. I spent the next week avoiding both Ryan and Olivia, focusing instead on my classes and my job at the bookstore. The constant worry about finances was actually freeing in a way, giving me a tangible problem to solve rather than dwelling on the memories of a life that now felt increasingly distant. Then one evening, as I locked up the bookstore, I found them both waiting outside. Ryan looked uncomfortable, Olivia triumphant. "We need to talk," Ryan said simply. I considered walking away, but the confrontation had been inevitable from the moment of my rebirth. Better to face it now, on my terms. "Fine. Where?" "My apartment is close," Ryan suggested. "A public place," I countered, unwilling to be alone with them. We settled on a quiet corner of the campus coffee shop, nearly empty at this late hour. I sat across from them, studying Olivia with new eyes. In my previous life, I had always seen her as sophisticated and elegant, everything I wasn't. Now I recognized the calculation behind her fragile appearance, the manipulation inherent in her damsel in distress act. "You've been spreading rumors about my mental health," I said directly to Olivia. She didn't bother denying it. "I'm concerned about you, Wei. Your behavior since graduation has been erratic. The things you've said about Ryan and me, they're not rational." "What's not rational is the way you two have manipulated everyone around you," I replied calmly. "Ryan pretending to pursue me while remaining emotionally committed to you. You orchestrating convenient emergencies whenever he shows interest in someone else." Ryan leaned forward, his expression more serious than I'd ever seen it. "Wei, I want to understand what's happening. The things you know about Olivia and me, private conversations, promises made years ago. You couldn't possibly know these things." "Unless I told her," Olivia interjected, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "You didn't," I said flatly. "You'd never admit the truth about your relationship with Ryan, especially not to me." "Then how?" Ryan pressed. "It's like you've seen the future somehow, or lived through it already." I looked between them, weighing my options. The truth was impossible to believe, yet lying had created a tangled web I couldn't escape. In my previous life, I had spent decades pretending not to see what was right in front of me. I was tired of pretending. "I have lived through it," I said finally. "I lived 30 years married to you, Ryan, always wondering why you were so distant, why Olivia was always your priority. I died at 58, and in my final moments, I overheard you two confessing your true feelings. Then I woke up on graduation day with a chance to do it all differently." The silence that followed was profound. Olivia's expression shifted from suspicion to disbelief to something like fear. Ryan stared at me, his face unreadable. "That's impossible," Olivia whispered. "Is it? How else could I know about the promise you made Ryan make when you were 9 years old, after your father left? How could I know about the night before our wedding, when you called Ryan crying and he spent 3 hours talking you down from a panic attack?" Ryan's face paled. "No one knows about that night. I never told anyone." "Because it would have raised too many questions," I finished for him. Questions about why my fiancé was spending the night before our wedding comforting another woman. If what you're saying is true, Ryan began slowly, then you know things about the future, about all of us. I nodded. I know that our marriage was a sham. I know that you married me because it was expected, because your family needed mine, because Olivia encouraged you to settle down while keeping you emotionally tethered to her. I would never, Olivia protested, but her eyes betrayed her. You would, and you did, I said.